All right, so we're just waiting for one more board member.
We have a quorum, so we can probably go ahead and get started. If
We are live on YouTube, so we're good to go.
Okay, let's go ahead and start the Clean Energy Alliance Board of Directors special meeting agenda for September 22nd, 2022 at 2 p.m. And Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Certainly. Member Musgrove?
Yes.
Member Bapatel?
Here.
Member Jensen?
Here.
Member Melendez? Vice Chair Drucker?
Here.
Chair Becker?
Present.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll wait.
I
Did we
think
miss somebody?
Susan.
Board Member Insco, did we?
Here.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
No worries.
It's growing and growing, so.
Right?
yes.
It's going to get harder to keep track.
So we're all present except for one, and hopefully that one board member will be able to join us soon. So we are on to the flag salute. Let's wait and see if we can get the flag on our screen. I'll go ahead and lead today. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
for which it stands, one nation,
One
under
nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect. All right, thank you. All right, are there any board comments or announcements? There's board member Melendez, I see, has joined us. Hello.
Present. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. I don't see any comments and no presentations today. Do we have any public comment?
We have no requests to speak.
Thank you. All right. We have an approval of the minutes up next. I'll entertain a motion in a second.
So moved. Second.
All right. Call for the vote.
Member Musgrove?
Yes.
Member Insco?
Yes.
Member Bapatel?
Yes.
Member Melendez?
Yes.
Member Jensen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Drucker?
Yes.
And Chair Becker?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. We are at the consent calendar with 4 items on the consent calendar. I would like to pull item number 1, and I think that means pulling item number 3. Does anybody else have any items they'd like to pull? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to move item 2 and 4.
Move to approve the balance.
Second.
All right, call for the vote.
Member Jensen?
Yes.
Member Bapatel?
Yes.
Member Insco?
Yes.
Member Melendez?
Yes.
Member Musgrove?
Aye.
Vice Chair Drucker?
Yes.
Chair Becker?
Yes,
Motion carries.
we don't have a formal policy on this, but I'm wondering if we could just go ahead and quickly go to this item instead of waiting to the end of the new business, if that's okay. I was just going to bring up the fact that most all of our cities, I think, except for Del Mar, has gone back in person. And I'm wondering if we could just have a discussion on whether or not it's time for the CEA board to meet in person, and that would be in San Marcos. So does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea. I would support that.
You know, just driving around is for maybe a 15-20 minute meeting. To me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I have to drive the furthest, to say the least. You know, at some point we're going to have to go back to in-person meetings. We won't have any choice, but the later the better, as far as I'm concerned, given the fact that we, again, have to drive all over the place to get to a meeting. And we're supposed to be energy conscious, green, et cetera.
It's just that I don't think that that's the criteria, unfortunately.
Yep.
I think it would be better, but it's just, this is that we're stating that there's still a state of emergency. And if all our other cities have stated that there isn't, and we're going back in person, I'm just finding that hard to justify. I would love to have a hybrid situation, but I guess we're not. Are we able to in San Marcos have that hybrid?
Hybrid just doesn't work. I mean, it's too difficult. Way too difficult to have a hybrid because you have to have the cameras the cameras have to be working at the board level also. And I'm not, I don't think San Marcos is set up to do that. They may be able to simulcast, but that is different than actually having the Zoom cameras present in their
Right.
And
I know
then-
some meetings are hybrid, like Sandag is and LAFCO. So there are a few. So I guess
Yeah.
pretty much we don't have that capability, but
Chair,
yeah.
yeah,
ahead.
Chair Becker, when our communications team went out to San Marcos and ran through the test process for live streaming, we did learn that we were not able to do a hybrid due to limitations of technology.
Mhm. Okay, any other board member comments? I see no hands up. Well, I'm willing to go with the majority vote. I just would love to hear from more of you about whether or not. Anybody?
If I
Member
could.
Jensen?
Yes, I believe Oceanside has the technology if we want to do it here. We had our council meetings on Zoom and in person throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, the question is did all the council members show up and the Zoom was for the public, or did some of the council members not show up?
Some of the council members did not show up
Okay.
because there were times where the COVID actually, went through the council. So when somebody was quarantined, they still attended the meetings, but via Zoom.
Good.
Chair Becker, if I could
Yeah,
speak to that. So one of the reasons that San Marcos was selected as the location was due to their capabilities to be able to live stream through YouTube, which is CEA's channel for live streaming. So we would have to reach out to Oceanside to see, number one, the availability of the council chambers and the live streaming capabilities, and work through that in advance of that. And then the resolution that was adopted by the board that set the schedule did identify San Marcos as our location. So we would need to change that as well.
got it. Okay. Well, seeing that no one feels very strongly about this, should we table this for the next meeting then?
I think it's a great idea. I don't know that we're able to make a decision on that today, but certainly maybe an agenda item for the next meeting.
Yeah, I'd love to research that Oceanside spot, and that might be a little bit closer actually for Solana Beach and Del Mar.
Definitely is closer.
Yeah, okay, well, let's do that
D-
then.
Just conversely, though, in fairness, it does extend the drive out for Escondido. San Marcos is kind of situated in between everyone, so it's, unless we're having it here, I can almost walk there. But I don't know that shorten the commute of any one of the board members should be an overriding concern.
All right, so do I then have a motion to move consent item number 1 and number 3? That means that we will be canceling the regular meeting on October 27th, and we will meet on October 20th, 22.
Move to approve.
Are we going to meet in person on the 22nd or the 20 on the 20th? Or because the only reason we're meeting on the 20th is so that we can continue the virtual. If we're going to stop the virtual, then we should just continue to have regular meetings on the 4th Thursday of the month.
It sounds like there wasn't enough support, and I thought we were going to pursue maybe a hybrid meeting and table this situation
Okay,
for another month.
that's fine.
So if we're going to move item number 1, that means that we are reconsidering the circumstances of the COVID-19 state of emergency. So if we have a motion for moving item number 1 and 3, then our next meeting will be virtual on the
Okay,
20th.
I would second at this point.
All right, call for the vote.
Member Patel,
Yes.
Member Melendez,
Yes.
Member Musgrove,
Yes.
Member Jensen,
Yes.
Member Insco,
Yes.
Vice Chair Druker,
Yes.
Chair Becker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, that brings us to new business. Item number 5, Clean Energy Alliance Chief Executive Officer, Operational, Administrative, and Regulatory Affairs Update. Take it away.
Thank you, Chair Becker. I did not have a presentation for the CEO report, so we can kick off, turn it over to our Special Counsel Tosdahl for his regulatory report this afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Boswell. Good afternoon, board members. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me know that you can all see that. Okay, can you all see that okay? Okay,
Yeah.
great. I wanted to spend a little bit of time with you today talking about some bills that were passed the California legislature at the end of the legislative session occurred. And so I wanted to take you through a couple of energy bills that were passed that we haven't had a chance to talk about. And then finally, just wanted to wrap up with a brief discussion on some changes that are going on to the PCIA, which are seemingly ongoing for all of time. The big bill that got passed at the end of the legislative session was Senate Bill 846. And that bill extends the life of Diablo Canyon at least 5 years. It invalidates a prior decision of the California Public Utilities Commission granting PG&E's request to retire the plant. It orders the CPUC to establish new retirement dates consistent with the Nuclear Energy Regulatory Commission permit that a PG&E is going to be required to obtain. Requires all customers, including CEA customers, to pay non-bypassable charges to support the continued life of Diablo Canyon. Those charges notably are based on gross consumption rather than load, which I can get into. It does disallow this, who takes on this power as an off-taker, as a buyer, from including these resources in their integrated resource plans. It also extends a $1.4 billion loan by the state of California to PG&E to continue operation of this plant. This bill also provides some added detail about these non-bypassable charges. All customers are going to be required to pay $6.50 per megawatt hour generated by Diablo Canyon. Customers in PG&E territory will have to pay an additional $6.50 per megawatt hour. The bill does not address what happens to the capacity or the power that the facility generates. So one of the big questions that we have is what happens to that power and capacity. We think that's going to be addressed in the resource adequacy rulemaking proceeding. A number of these other issues will be addressed in the application proceeding for Diablo Canyon. The immediate next steps are that PG&E has to apply for a permit with the Nuclear Energy Regulatory Commission. The PG&E previously expressed that when it had applied to retire these units, that it didn't believe that it could obtain a permit. So I think there's a question about whether this permit is going to be granted. The state is going to establish the loan funds and an independent safety committee. The CPUC has been ordered by the legislature to reopen the application proceeding and address various issues. Notably, the CPUC is prohibited from authorizing operations beyond 2030. So we're looking at about a 5-year extension on Diablo Canyon. Was slated to be retired in 2025. The legislation doesn't say it, but the CPUC has been planning for the retirement of Diablo Canyon for several years. And so the capacity and power that's going to be online now that wasn't anticipated is going to have to be addressed in various CPUC proceedings. So we'll certainly report back on this in more detail. This was a huge initiative that was advanced by Governor Newsom. I did want to circle back to one aspect of this that was very contentious, and that is the requirement that all customers pay these non-bypassable charges based on gross consumption. Usually when we get legislation from energy legislation, or we get orders from the Public Utilities Commission to go procure some amount of resources, for example, and or the utilities get a similar type of order. They're directed to go procure those resources based on load. So how much electrical load they serve. We haven't seen this before, but this new language about gross consumption is aimed at behind the meter customers. This gross consumption language means that you can't a rooftop solar customer couldn't net out these non-bypassable charges. So it's interesting language. I think we'll see more of this, which will preclude netting of charges by rooftop solar. Definitely the solar industry was, certainly, and a lot of environmental groups were unhappy about this component of it and opposed the bill on that grounds. So there will be more to report back about the implementation. Yeah.
Explain what this is going to be, a fee that's going to be attached starting in 2026 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or
most
sooner?
likely in 2026. Yeah, there'll be we will all be paying a fee and the fee is reserved for the what it takes to maintain the plan over that course of time, and also what it takes to plan for retirement. And there's some other language in the bill that suggests there's going to be some additional costs that we may be asked to pay connected with the decommissioning of the plant. What's driving this decision is concerns about reliability. That's what we heard loud and clear from the governor's office and from the proponents. So, this is definitely, I think, for those of you who weren't following this, the retirement of this plant was a major initiative of several environmental organizations. It was certainly something that was endorsed by Governor Brown at the time. And a lot of planning went into the retirement of this plant. So this is certainly a hiccup in the phasing out of nuclear. This is our last operating nuclear plant here in California. So certainly viewed, I think, will be viewed as a delay and hiccup in the process of phasing out nuclear resources. Last thing I wanted to point out, and happy to take more questions about this. I know it's a pretty substantial bill. Last thing I want to point out is that a lot of CCA programs are going to be in a bit of a quandary if they get the opportunity to take this power or the capacity, because they have in their foundational documents or in their procurement policies, they have either prohibitions or disfavored status on nuclear power. And so this really does, I think, put some CCA programs in a bit of a bind.
And including ours.
Yes, including ours.
We have a prohibition about that. Yeah.
Do we have any idea how many customers CCAs have throughout California?
I have to check the Cal CCA stats, what the latest is. I don't know off the top of my head. The numbers in the tens of millions.
So there's plenty of people that are still on traditional power supply, shall we say?
There are a number of customers who are still on IOU service, bundled service. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Ty, real quickly, the 650 per megawatt hour, how does that factor into an individual customer's bill, or is it going to be based on production levels and averaged out or parceled out to the individual agency recipients, such as the CCAs, SDG&E, PG&E, and whatnot?
Yeah, the latter. Board Member Musgrove, it will be the actual charge will be based on the output. So what the energy and capacity output of the facility, and then that will each customer will be charged that amount that will be averaged out to each customer.
Yeah, so there's no way to know where the power goes, only where it ends up. So it is going to depend on the power generated by the station and then averaged out based on the number of customers per individual entity, and then that will reflect on the bill. Does that sound about right? I mean, there's no way to tell.
Yeah, I mean, what we'll be looking for is what arrangements are made to, put this power back in the system, and who's in whose name, right, it will be put back on the system. And so there's, one way this could play out is that the capacity from the facility could be allocated out to all load serving entities, all CCA programs, all utilities on a load basis. And we would get some credit for our resource adequacy requirement, for example. So that's one way they could, this charge could, or this bill could turn into something beneficial for us, but the bill doesn't address it.
I find it interesting that we're going to pay extra for power for a station that's already online, where really nothing is going to change, although they had plans to ramp it down. Since it wasn't going to happen for 3 more years, they're just going to continue operations. The state is going to give essentially PG&E the loan to keep Diablo Canyon running, and we're going to be assessed a fee for the fact that they are going to continue running.
Sounds like it's a payoff of the loan.
It almost does. Thank you. Yeah.
I will say a couple things in response to those comments. One is, I think it's very clear that the legislature and the governor have committed to, the ratepayers and the taxpayers in the state of California to a very substantial commitment to PG&E and to this facility. So, in terms of the loan and in terms of the rate support, this is, pretty incredible, pretty unusual in terms of, the type of support that's called out here.
Yeah, my general concern, I'm sorry, Dave, and I'll shut up. What we're going to pay sounds a little bit more than what it will cost to run Diablo, and really reflects more maintaining the solvency of PG&E, since they're going to add an additional charge to their own customers. And I don't find that very, very fair, if we want to use that word.
I think it's only natural to ask questions about what the, a true intent and motivations of this bill are when PG&E is in such dire financial straits and has been for so long.
Yeah.
So I think.
Thank you, Dave. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
And Ty, thank you also.
I have the same question.
This is somewhat, don't forget, somewhat political theater. You're decommissioning a power source when we're having power problems. And, again, the Nuclear Regulatory Agency may not approve this anyway. And so it may not happen. Just as an aside on this, I saw a report that said the latest problems that we had in terms of the power outages, a whole lot of power was provided by batteries. So batteries may solve a whole lot of this, and Diablo Canyon may not be needed anyway.
Just quickly in response, I think we're nowhere close to sort of maximizing our battery capacity. We're just scratching the surface. So I just
I understand, but it's better than it was 2 years ago. Or
sure, it is very much so. Very much so.
Board Member Insco? You're muted. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chair Becker. Vice Chair Drucker actually just brought up my question, and when Mr. Tosdow was going through the next steps, he did say that the application still has to be approved, and I did sense some concern in his voice that is a possible non-starter. So I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to share on that, but Vice Chair Drucker did bring it up as well. So.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to share. Board Member Insco, thank you for the question. I don't think I have anything else to share on that. I have questions about why PG&E's view seems to have changed. Right, previously they said they didn't think they could get this permit approved. And that was one of the driving forces behind the retirement application. And now, I take it that they were telling the governor and the legislature, at least I assume, that they were expressing some confidence in their ability to get this permit application. Otherwise, I don't think this bill would have passed. I realize I'm making an assumption there. And so my question is just, and I unfortunately don't have information about this, but I just wonder what changed between then and now.
Exactly. Well, addressing the issue should be interesting, and I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I will certainly report back about this. I, definitely noted all of your interest in this subject, especially in the charges. And so we will certainly keep this at the top of the agenda when there's any developments and report back about it. A couple of other bills I wanted to, if there's no further questions on Diablo Canyon, a couple of other bills I wanted to just mention. Assembly Bill 1279 made some modifications to the state's greenhouse gas target. And so we have, as you know, a greenhouse gas target. The definition, I wanted to note the definition here in this bill was modified a little bit so that our zero greenhouse gas emissions is defined as a net zero greenhouse gas emissions. And also wanted to let you know that as part of this bill, the legislature has instructed the Air Resources Board to look at specifically carbon capture and carbon sequestration programs. And there's a companion bill, SB 905, that also passed that authorizes the Air Resources Board to launch a carbon capture and sequestration program. We will see how that goes forward. I just wanted to bring it to your attention because we haven't talked about CCS very much here in California. It is still, I think, an experimental technology. It's still pretty, it's still, from what I understand, reading in some of the research, it's fairly expensive. But there's certainly a lot of interest in it. Certainly some people would welcome this news in the industry, I think, and there's others would be critical, have been very, there's a lot of criticism around carbon capture as well. So just wanted to let you know that, this was a direction that the state's also looking at going and is, taking steps in that direction.
So Ty, I saw a story recently about that where they were looking at what they could capture. They would then essentially put it into a vault and bury it underground. Is that similar to what we're talking about?
Yeah, 905 talks all about basically carbon injection wells and providing a possibility to do underground storage of carbon. And so it provides for, paves the way for easier development of those facilities. And so we will see. I think we're going to have to keep a close look on this, or a close watch on these developments as well. The last bill, Senate Bill 1020, did two things I want to discuss with you. As you know, we have a goal. It's not a requirement, a legal requirement, but the state has a goal of reaching 100% renewable and zero carbon by 2045. SB 1020 revised that to provide a graduated path to get to 100%. Didn't change the goal. But it did put some intermediate steps in place. So 90%, the goal is now 90% of retail sales of electricity by 2035, 95% by 2040. Something that this bill did do that is a requirement, state agencies must reach 100% renewable and zero carbon sooner than other customers. And so state agencies have to reach state agency facilities. So that's owned by the facility owned by the state, and electricity procured for those facilities, I should say, have to meet required to meet 100% requirement by 2035. I mentioned this in part because of I think some of the CCA programs, some of the people on this board have talked about using this as an opportunity to recruit state customers to their CCA programs, because it's quite natural for us to reach out to some of these state level entities that are buying power in our region and offer them to opt up to 100%. So I wanted to mention that to everybody as sort of an opportunity potentially out there to recruit smart customers.
Ty, do you think that would include the 22nd Agricultural District County Fair?
You know what? That's a great question. They are a state agency.
Yeah. So, we should research that and I don't believe they're customer currently, right, Barbara?
That's correct. They are served by direct access, so they're not our customer at this time.
Yeah, so we may want to chat with them at some point. Don Mosier, who is part of the community advisory group, is on the agricultural board. So may want to reach out to him and figure out how we can get this moving for them, because they've got 13 years to get this together.
Well, I don't envy Don, but I'm glad to hear for our purposes that he's on the board.
So Ty, even facilities like Caltrans facilities within the county, let's say, and California Highway Patrol, Fish and Game, any of them, Cal DOJ, they all have operations within the county. They could align with one of the two CCAs within the county and then meet their target goal by going 100%. And then the onus is then on that CCA to provide.
That's the thought. And all those entities and agencies that you mentioned, are going to be under this requirement, is my understanding.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think it does present an opportunity. Any other questions about the legislative session? It was kind of a whirlwind ending. There was definitely some political theater going on because it occurred during this sort of very hot period when we were threatening blackouts, and so there was definitely that was part of the discussion that was going on. Okay, one final item for you all today. I just want to let you know that, and this is part of an issue that we discuss frequently. I wanted to let you know that there are changes to the PCIA methodology that are being discussed. I don't think the PCIA issues are ever going to go away until the PCIA goes away. But right now they're looking at incorporating this certain type of contract. They're trying to incorporate what are called long-term fixed price contracts and short-term index plus contracts into the RPS benchmark used for the PCIA. So just remember the PCIA is essentially a subtraction problem. It's the cost of the portfolio minus the market price. And so when we talk about the market price benchmark here, we're talking about that market price component. And so the Energy Division staff at the CPUC came up with a very sort of complex way to incorporate these contracts. It would require changes to the PCIA calculation, and there are potential adverse effects to CCA programs due to the addition of these long-term fixed price contracts. Cal CCA opposed this proposal, and they pointed out that these transactions are contracts are not currently included in other benchmarks, and the method is complex and artificial. So I thought they did a pretty good job pushing back on that. There are remaining methodological issues that the commission's looking at around the PCIA. They're going to look at GHG free resources and whether they're undervalued and whether to change that. And they're going to look at the energy index part of the market price benchmark. So the PCIA issues continue, so we will report back about those when there are further developments. That's all that I had for you guys today. Any other questions for me?
Seeing none, thank you so much. That was really interesting.
Thanks for the mic. I appreciate it.
Always a little
Thank you, Ty.
little disappointing, but some good stuff in there.
Always some disappointments, to be sure.
Eye-opening for sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. We're going to move on to item number 6 and consider approval of a 15-year power purchase agreement with Cape Generating Station.
Thank you, Chair Becker. The item for consideration, the recommendation is for the board to approve a 15-year power purchase agreement with Cape Generating Station 1, LLC, for geothermal renewable energy for an amount not to exceed $38,200,000, and that is over the 15-year period, and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to execute all documents subject to our special transactions attorney approval. Some background. California Public Utilities Commission Decision 21-06-035, also known as the midterm reliability requirement, provided that entities such as Clean Energy Alliance must procure additional resources to assist in responding to extreme weather events, replacement of 2,700 megawatts of retiring natural gas plants, and also the 2,200 megawatt retirement of Diablo Canyon, which was just discussed. Included in that requirement are that projects must come online. There are various stages upon which it can come online, including August 1st, 2023, June 1st, 2024, June 1st, 2025, and also missing from here is 2026, with a preference for as early as possible. So they're looking for brand new builds for generating opportunities. The goal is to increase resource diversity, and that at least 1,000 megawatts of the new requirement would come from clean, firm resources such as geothermal. It must be available for a minimum of 10 years and be non-fossil fueled. This project came about through a December 2021 solicitation. It was a joint solicitation between the entities of Desert Community Energy, California Choice Energy Authority, and Clean Energy Alliance. From that solicitation, we received responses representing 80 different projects. Those projects were reviewed and the shortlist was prepared based on price, location, and compliance with the various components of the midterm reliability. Cape Generating Station 1 LLC meets the geothermal resource requirement, is a 15-year delivery, and is also, the cost is within our pro forma cost assumptions. So it is, the cost is within our, the rates that were set in our assumptions for future costs. And that does complete my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the chair and board may have.
Let me also first ask, do we have any public comment on this? No, no public comment. All right, let's go to Board Member Melendez.
Thank you. Just one question. Well, a couple. So minimum of 10 years. What is the maximum that we could provide or opportunity for us to provide?
Yeah, there isn't a maximum. However, in the past, you would typically see long-term renewable energy contracts be in the 20 to 25-year realm. It's becoming more and more common for these contracts to be 15 years, so that we're not locked into a long-term contract as costs may be going down, and we could look for other renewable energy at potentially a lower cost.
Wonderful, thank you. And would this result in rate stabilization for our customers?
Sure. Anytime that you provide cost reliability through contracting, it helps to provide rate stability because you're locking down your costs of energy, which is our #1 expense in our budget. So yes, that is one of the results.
And then would you be able to describe the ways in which we would ensure that cost? Is it by nature of being a renewable source of energy versus a non-renewable that allows it to be a consistent cost?
It's through the contracting terms. So the contract specifies what we're going to pay on a per megawatt hour basis for that energy. And we only pay for the energy that is actually produced and delivered on our behalf.
Okay, and what circumstances could arise that may result in a change to the energy cost, which we would not be contracted to pay anything outside of what we had agreed to, but could we anticipate changes to those energy costs with the sources of energy that we'd be using?
Are you talking about with this specific contract or in general our budget line item for energy costs?
With this particular contract.
Yeah, so it is a fixed price contract. So we would not be in a position for them to be able to charge us more per megawatt hour. However, what we pay accumulative over a course of a year could be lower if, for example, the system is down for maintenance, for example, and we're not getting as much energy as we anticipated, then they could only charge us for what they actually delivered.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
All right, Vice Chair Drucker.
Yes, so Barbara, how reliant are we going to be on this contract to provide us with this midterm in case for some reason Cape Station 1 just doesn't come online?
So this project is approximately 10% of our total midterm reliability requirement that was allocated to us from the PUC. And it is a new construction, and it is currently scheduled to be online in 2026, which is at the end of the period they're looking for to bring online. There are key milestones that need to be achieved that are outlined in the contract. And so we would know fairly well in advance if they're missing the mark or going to be delayed. We are working on contracts for 7 different suppliers. So we are mitigating the risk of not meeting our requirement by one particular supplier not making it to the finish line with their project by having various other contracts that we may be able to go to and increase the amount that we're getting from one particular one. So we feel that by spreading out our allocation by such a wide number of contracts that we mitigate that risk of one particular supplier, such as this one, of not getting through to the finish line and actually completing the construction.
Thank you.
All right, Board Member Musgrove.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this is interesting that the requirement was for either geothermal or biomass. Did we look at any biomass providers, or were there none that would met our requirements?
We did have some biomass projects that did respond to our solicitation. However, this project checked more of the boxes than those projects in terms of meeting the timeline, cost, and then the terms of the contract.
Okay, so I have a kind of a two-parter here. I know that this is a Delaware LLC, and Delaware is very generous with their LLCs, but this is in fact a Utah-based company.
Okay.
Will the power be produced in Utah, or is it going to be produced off-site through Utah, or do we know that yet?
The project is in Utah and would be directly connected into the CAISO with delivery coming directly into California's grid.
Okay, so our contract. So our contract is for the credits for the geothermal energy produced, put into the grid through CalISO. Does that sound about right?
We're actually buying the underlying energy as well, not just the
Okay.
certificates for the credits.
Are they actually producing energy today, or is this something that we're looking at, hopefully for the June 2026 date?
This is a brand new project, so it's not producing any energy at this point in time. It would be
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the company
Thanks.
actually is Cape Station is a subsidiary or whatever, an LLC for a company that's based out of Houston and San Francisco. It's a startup, and it's funded by, it's funded by private investors. The name of the company, I think, is Fernovo or something like that.
Yep, Fervo Energy.
Fervo, okay.
Mhm.
Councilmember Melendez, is your hand up from previous? I think it's still up there. Well,
Yes, I'll lower
okay.
that.
Very good. Well, I'm happy that our partnership with that Desert Community Energy and the California Choice Energy Authority has brought some fruit. So I'm happy to, do we need a motion on this? Yes. Yes, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the 15-year power purchase agreement with Cape Generating Station 1 LLC for geothermal renewable energy for an amount not to exceed $38,200,000 and authorize the CEO to execute all documents subject to transactions attorney approval. Do I have a second?
I'll second. And I just want to make one comment. I want to make sure that we do follow this really closely to make sure that if they do fail in their technology, that we have a good backup.
All right, call for the vote.
Thank you. And
Oh, sorry,
Okay.
accident, sorry.
I'm sorry, and for the record, we have no request to speak on this item.
Thank you.
Member Melendez,
Aye.
Member Insco,
Aye.
Member Musgrove,
No,
Member Jensen,
Aye.
Member Bupatel,
Aye.
Vice Chair Druker,
Yes.
Chair Becker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, board member requests for future agenda items. I think we do have the one to consider hybrid meetings. And so with that, our next meeting will be October 20th, 2022 at 2 p.m. and we will remain virtual for that meeting. Have a good afternoon, everyone.